What we have basically is the largest moderate rebel group joining forces and agreeing to fight alongside Christian groups, the Syriac Military Council, which I think is being meant as a sign to Congress and the international community back in the United States that they want to show a united and inclusive front in this fight that they are having in Syria with ISIS and with Bashar al-Assad, the regime. And they are trying to do this, I am sure, to try to get the money that has been approved by Congress to them much faster, because they all tell me after this meeting that the conditions in Syria are dire and that these fighters are really being squeezed by these two fronts, the ISIS on one side and Bashar al-Assad regime on the other. Ashley?
So, Drew, so much of this seems like it could be considered symbolic because many of them have been joining forces on the battlefield already, whether you want to call it out of desperation, out of need, whatever it is. But since you were actually at this meeting, Drew, and we're told there were 2 U.S. congressmen who were at these meetings as well, I'm not sure if we can identify who they are, but could you let me know exactly what was said to these groups in terms of what America plans to give them and send them to help them in their fight against ISIS and Bashar al-Assad?
Well, that was the focus of the congressional side of this meeting, Ashley. Who are these people? Adam Kinzinger, a Republican from Illinois, and George Holding, a Republican from North Carolina, were the only 2 to come on this trip, although they had many staffers from the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, a Democrat, dropped out last week after she voted against funding these rebels. These 2 congressmen came here because they don't know whom to trust. And they want to basically look in the eyes of these people and try to determine if the United States and its citizens should put guns in the hands of these very rebels, fearing that they could end up in war. So part of the meeting was to try to develop some trust. The other part of the meeting was trying to get some kind of coalition that's going to protect the Christians. But it was also a very strong venting sessions where these rebel groups were basically telling these representatives of the U.S. government these airstrikes aren't exactly super helpful if you're just going to hit ISIS and you're not going to hit the Assad regime. And number 2, if you want us to fight ISIS on the ground and not just have you drop a few bombs from the air, you better give us some money because we're running out of bullets.
Drew, also, if you could let me know, when we talk about a dozen or so of these Syrian rebel groups, convening at this meeting with U.S. congressmen in Turkey and allying in their common effort to fight ISIS and Assad, who isn't there? Because that might be just as important as who is there. What rebel groups aren't there?
Well, some of the major rebel groups fighting in Syria were not there, and I think that was on purpose. And they are the Islamist Front and al-Nusra. These are the 2 Islamic groups that are also in the same battle against ISIS and the same battle against Bashar al-Assad. They are not going to be a popular group with the U.S. congressmen or with U.S. taxpayers to fund because, quite frankly, they don't trust them. But those, as you said earlier, Ashley, it is a very fluid situation in Syria, and basically the enemy of my enemy is my friend. These coalitions form and drop out just as easily as the battlefield kind of displays itself across Syria. So you have territory being taken, you have territory being ceded, you have ISIS coming from one side, you have Assad coming from another, and now these rebel forces say we have to worry about airstrikes from up above, which, by the way, they say they are in no coordination with the U.S. or the international coalition on. So they are trying to get the message out that they need help. But as far as who we can trust, I don't think these 2 congressmen left here today knowing for sure who they can trust, only that these people need some kind of help and there needs to be some kind of guidance in Syria to get them through this.